And we are going. All right. What's up, guys? How are we doing?
Hey.
All right.
Howdy.
So we are going to do a Hall of Fame draft just as a way to talk some baseball during this time away from talking about baseball. We're going to talk about what we're drinking. But first, we're going to introduce everybody one at a time. I'll go with my top left first. We got Graham Womack. Graham, give us a little bit about you.
Hey guys, so yeah, no, I mean, basically, we all know each other from the last 10 years, really, because we're all super hardcore Hall of Fame geeks. And I think my thing way I got to know a lot of you guys is I started doing a project about 10 years ago, having people vote on the 50 best players not in the Hall of Fame, and yeah, you three guys are like some of the most devoted people from that project. I think I've run it like 4 times and then done some other kind of iterations of it. But yeah, I just, I love talking about this topic, and I've got a whole list of hastily scribbled names next to me that we can probably spend the next 2 hours arguing about. And yeah, no, I'm excited.
Awesome. Let's go to you next, Dan.
Hey guys, I'm Dan McCloskey. I'm drinking a Zero Gravity Madonna Double IPA. In case you're curious, it's pretty solid. I'm probably the least famous of the group. You guys are all kind of famous in your own right. I might be the least knowledgeable too, but I'm a high school friend of Big Joe Williams, whose name has been mentioned in a Hall of Fame induction speech. But I'm a Hall of Fame nut like you guys. I ran the Range for Hall of Fame Twitter account for a while there, and good to get to hang out with you guys.
I guess that's me. I'm next, right?
Go to Joe.
Well, I'm drinking Baby Kittens.
Fat Orange Cat. All right.
Fat Orange Cat,
Nice.
which is 5 miles from my house, and it's great during this COVID situation we got, where they just leave you a bag of beer and you pick it up and you come home and drink it. So, I'm Joe Williams. I'm the heaviest of everyone here, I think, and I also maybe a little bit older than most of you guys. I've been trekking the hall since the late 70s, probably, maybe a little bit earlier. And I was supposed to go to Cooperstown for what it is, my 33rd straight year, Dan, or 34th, I forget. For the inductions, yeah. Plus, I do Overlook Legends with Adam. I created the process for that many years ago and turned over the reins to Adam for a few years, and we kind of always work together on it. So the project may be winding down, breaking news, but it's been great working with Adam on that. So that's where I am. I'm the Overlook Legends guy.
All right. And for anyone that doesn't know me, Adam Darowski. So I did the holostats.com. You might know that. By night, working for Baseball Reference, doing some design stuff for them, and other stuff by day that's not nearly as exciting on the Sabre Overlook Legends committee with Joe, and just love talking Hall of Fame. So ready to do this. So the ground rules: we're each going to pick 10 players. You got to have one player from each position, but we've got 2 pitchers, so there's no DHs or anything like that. We're going to have a serpentine draft, so we're going to start off by randomly picking our draft order. And then when your turn is up, you pick a name, and we talk a little bit about that person and move on. It's just a way to talk about some of the interesting figures outside of the Hall of Fame. And without further ado, maybe I will go ahead and share my screen and show that I have some things in the way of my... I'm just going to hide some Zoom things. So there's our draft board. So on this side, we've got the draft order. So we'll punch in our names here, and these are the pick numbers. And then I'll just track who's been taken here by position. So first thing we're going to do, so we've got our wheel of names. See who's got the number 1 pick. All right, here we go. Number 1 pick. Oh, it's going to be Graham.
Sweet.
It is Graham.
I thought it was going to be fixed.
All right, so player 1 is Graham.
Sweet.
All right, who's got number 2?
It's exciting.
Isn't it really? This is like
the most exciting thing that's happened to me in like 6 or 7 weeks. So.
Nice.
Damn.
All right, we got Dan. Dan did not want to be Dan did not want to be. Oh my God, I did it again. He did not want to be third. So good for you there. Here we go. Overlook Legends Committee going head to head here. Oh, number 3.
Pieces of pie.
Nice.
All right. But then, Joe, you get 4 and 5. So
Yeah. First base isn't my favorite position to talk about. But...
Well, you don't have to pick the positions in order.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can fill in, if you want to pick a catcher first, you want to pick, so I'm just going to use this side to fill in what positions have been taken for each person.
Oh, very interesting. I didn't realize that. All right.
Yeah.
So when we pick them, you want us to like say what position they're playing, and then we can move it later. Like if there's like some guys that could do left field, right field, probably, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I suppose I could let you move a guy later if he has played a decent amount there.
The way I look at it, most games they played at is their position. So that's the way I look at it. I know some people may say their best years were at this position, but
right. Well,
Dick Allen's one that is
he's
tricky.
He's arguable in that.
I have him as a first baseman. But.
Yeah, and there's more. Third base is a stronger position as far as this goes.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a bit, like Adam and I had, and I think we even talked about it via email. But yeah, if you want to draft a guy and put him in a position that, he played maybe less than the majority of his career, as long as like you can defend it in the draft, I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think you just justify it. And if we want to mock you for it, then, we can.
Shortstop Gary Sheffield.
Right.
All right. So without further ado, Graham, you want to give it a go?
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't my favorite pick to have to do, but I just think logically you have to go with Barry Bonds as the first overall pick, and make sure to say Barry Bonds because with Bobby and everything. I mean, some people might.
That's how I was going to get
you. But yeah, I mean, you figure. The way I look at it, I mean, even through 1998, when Bonds is thought to have played clean, I mean, he had a Hall of Fame career even through that point. And after that, obviously, you figure the things he did were just very few people in baseball history have done, steroids or no. And it's just, I think it's hard to not have him at the top of the list.
Yeah, I guess that could be. That's a lot of black ink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll allow it. We'll allow it.
Yeah.
All right, so that puts Dan on the clock, unless anybody else has something to say about Barry Bonds.
The only thing I have to say about Barry Bonds is well, duh. But, all right. Well, I'm gonna take the other fairly obvious one to probably everyone but Joe.
Jose Canseco?
I'll take Roger Clemens.
All right.
And, pretty much ditto everything Graham said about Clemens. We don't need to get into the whole steroid discussion. We all know that these guys were Hall of Famers or would be Hall of Famers if they didn't have that cloud hanging over their head. And Clemens, who knows? Who knows when he started, but we're pretty sure Clemens would have been a Hall of Famer without it. But he's a jerk, just like Bonds for screwing it up. Well, Clemens is probably a bigger jerk than Bonds, but not as big as jerk as another guy.
He does manage to get like a little bit less percentage-wise than Bonds every year, so must be just a little bit more of a jerk then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, now is when things get interesting. I was hoping I wouldn't get one of those first 2 picks. So now, if you thought those 2 picks were obvious, this one's going to be the most obvious of all. I need a captain for my team. Captain Jack. John Wesley Glasscock is my number 1 pick.
All right.
Got to have a shortstop. Gotta represent myself. Gotta live up to the brand. Gotta represent the 19th century. But we're talking Jack is just a supreme hitter and defender. He is the Alan Trammell of the 19th century. Wow, look at that new photo. Oh, that's a nice one. But yeah.
Is that a recent
2,000
photo?
hits. It's pretty recent. I think he just had that one taken. But yeah, over 2,000 hits, 290 hitter, but also the defensive metrics. Love him, both the old ones and the new school. We're like defensive WAR, he's there, but also the assists, the putouts, defensive game, double plays, turn, assists, shortstop, range factor, fielding percentage, everything. Old school, new school. Jack Glasscock does it. And that's why he's my number one. Got to have an important shortstop, got to have a captain. And John Wesley is the guy for me.
Out of curiosity, like, how do you do range factor for a 19th century player? Like, I mean, is there a reliable way to or I shouldn't say reliable, but just like, what do you guys know about kind of the way that it's calculated?
Well, with range factor, if you have putouts and assists, you've got it. It varies wildly over time, but yeah, that's really all there is to it. Putouts, assists, and errors. Same thing as fielding percentage. It measures how many chances the player fielded.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Which what you can then do is compare them to their league average. And, you know, he's got way more chances than everybody else. He's got the high percentage. So it's really, really hard to argue with the WAR fielding numbers that love him as well, because everything backs it up, as well as, you know, all the contemporary accounts.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Joseph.
Well, I think I'm going to stick to my original order because I do love catchers. And I think catchers, especially in my frame of mind, catchers were the best players at their position back in the early part of the history of the game. And I think this one guy kind of took the reins from Deacon White of the overlooked catchers, and his name is Charlie Bennett.
Oh, sure.
He held the record for games caught, which was a big deal, and I think it's important to look at catchers by games caught records because that's one way of measuring how good they were, because especially back in those days. And unfortunately, he had that accident, and he's got a park named after him and all that other stuff. But I think Charlie Bennett is someone that really needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And and there's a couple other guys I really like at catcher position. They're in the 20th century, but I think I'm going to go with Charlie Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, Bennett, shoot, I mean, when he played, I mean, catchers didn't even use protective equipment. I mean, you know, they were the bare knuckle brawlers of baseball history. I mean, and yeah, Bennett also had a ballpark named after him, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he the only player who's had a ballpark named after him?
That's a good
It
question.
seems unlikely, but I'll go with it because I love Charlie Bennett.
Well, Bennett also pioneered the use of equipment too, and so I think he used a chest protector, and he popularized face masks and that kind of stuff too. So I mean, he was a pioneer as well as probably one of the best players at his position during his time. So he's a no-brainer for me.
Absolutely.
Joe and I had the opportunity to speak at the Hall of Fame about the 19th century overlooked legends, and a good chunk of what I talked about was Charlie Bennett. I'm actually quite distraught that he was taken with the 4th overall pick because he was going to be my catcher. But yeah, I guess I should have expected these things when inviting Joe to join in. But yeah, we're talking a 6 WAR per season type player behind the plate. He was basically Mickey Tettleton at the plate and Ivan Rodriguez behind the plate. Just incredible catcher on both sides of the plate. Also a fantastic mustache. Look at that history of mustaches. It's just fantastic. And Joe, you get to go again as well, unless you have more to say about Mr. Bennett.
One thing I just say about guys in his time, the amount of games per season was quite low. So when people first take a look at their stats, you're not blown away by them, by their career totals. But if you project them to 150 game schedule or something, you would see a much higher hits and RBIs and so on and so forth. But
These OPS numbers.
What's Bennett's wins above average for 650 plate appearances? It's got to just be sky high.
Oh, per 650. Let's see. The wins above average. I would assume it's got to be in the 4 range.
Yeah, that's quite good for a career.
Yeah, exactly 4. That's why I wasn't seeing it.
Yeah.
Hey, according to Wikipedia, Oakland Alameda Coliseum was renamed Rickey Henderson Field, 2017.
Interesting.
I never knew this.
All right, I think I'm going to go at left field next. And
Oh boy.
I mean, Bonds is gone, but there's like 4 or 4 other guys that I would put in the Hall of Fame if I had the chance, and a couple others that, Harry Stoley was a great player. I like, but I don't even have him in my top 5. And the one guy that I think is one of the huge overlooked legends in my top 10, and he has been for quite some time, is Minnie Minoso.
Oh, sure.
He started out in the Negro Leagues. He played a couple of years, as you guys know. But his real value was when he got to the White Sox. Broke barriers not only was he black, but he spoke a foreign language. Clemente gets a lot of publicity and awards and all that, but I think Minoso was huge in bridging that gap. So just like Benji is in Graham's life. So I have to go with Minnie Minoso for my left field spot, despite some other guys I shall name later. I don't want to spoil it for anyone else.
No, I'm kind of upset you took Minnie Minoso, Joe, but I do have his autograph from a South Bend Silverhawks baseball game from about 25 years ago, maybe.
And you met him, right?
He signed it personally. Yeah. So
it's like my Buck O'Neill story.
Nice.
Very cool.
That brings it to me, who I'm glad we talked about Minoso for a little while longer, because I had absolutely no idea who I was going to pick, because I was going to take either Bennett or Minoso, and let's see. So I think I'm going to go with a position that it's pretty thin for me, so I'm going to go with the standout top player there. That's first base, and I'm going to go with Dick Allen.
All right.
And I'm not sure how much of a explanation Dick Allen needs. He's up for election again this winter, and he's just, he's Mark McGwire, basically, of his era. He's 156 OPS plus. The 351 home runs look low because of the era that he played in. Look, he's right in the middle of that pitching era there that dominated. But yeah, tons of black ink. He's got the awards as the MVP and the Rookie of the Year. He has some ridiculous individual seasons by WAR. He's got a 7.5 and 2 over 8.5. Dick Allen, just the best hitter outside the Hall.
It was interesting. As you guys know, I interviewed Maury Wells recently for Sports Illustrated, and I asked Wells while we were on the phone. We were on the line for almost an hour, and I asked him about a few players who he thought of if they should be in the Hall of Fame. And one of the guys who actually came up was Dick Allen, and I'm going to take a second because I didn't actually wind up publishing this in the article, but I thought it was kind of telling, and it could explain part of the reason that Allen hasn't gotten in yet, but. Let me see if I got it here in my notes. Give me a quick second. So he goes, yes, I think so. He was from a different cut during our era. And then Wells talked about how Allen would sometimes come to the ballpark intoxicated. And he said, Allen had good power, and Wells even saw him hit a spitball out of the park one time. And he goes, I guess because of his alcoholism, he didn't go down in the history of baseball as one of the all-time greats, but he was. There were times when pitchers would be dominating us, nobody could hit him, and Dick would take him deep the first 2 times at bat. So to me, it's really telling, and I'm definitely a supporter of Dick Allen being in there. I mean, yeah, you look at his OPS plus. I mean, that's one of the best in baseball history for guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame.
Agreed. Ready to move on to Dan, unless somebody has more on Allen?
Nope.
All right.
Well, you referred to Jack Glasscock as the Alan Trammell of the 19th century. I'm going to take the guy that you wrote on Hall of Stats. There we go, as the Alan Trammell of the 19th century, Bill Dolan.
Yeah, Glasscock was a little better than Alan Trammell. Sorry.
Yeah, well, okay. This is a second round pick, so
Gotcha.
So a guy, again, it's hard to really say with the 19th century, but a guy who seemed like he could do everything well. I wish we could trust for certain the fielding metrics of the 19th century, because it really, or we had some video. It really looks like he was amazing compared to his contemporaries fielding wise. And he was still an above average hitter, and 110 OPS plus for his career. And certainly had a lot of longevity. So he did it. He did it well over. I think his time with the Cubs was much better offensively, but he stuck around a long time and had some up and down years offensively. But overall was as good. As good as, almost as good probably as Trammell. Relative to era. Offensively.
Yeah, you see, I've stopped here on his defensive black ink. It's very similar. Not quite as sharp as Glasscock, but he was playing in slightly larger leagues too, I think. But yeah, just a very similar player, a great player, even more longevity. Played in seasons with a higher number of games too, which allowed him to approach almost 2,500 hits despite playing at the turn of the century.
Okay,
I love it.
That's my guy.
Graham, I feel like you haven't really gotten to take part yet. Now you get 2 picks in a row.
Yeah, I had to fall in the Bonds grenade for the first one. Now I get to actually start having some fun. So yeah, I'm going to do one that's on brand and close to my heart and say Lou Whitaker.
Nice.
And then, I'm also going to do one more that's from the heart. Adam, Dick Allen's is actually you. Allen's not me. So you'll want to move Dick Allen over to yours.
Yeah, that's true. I probably should do that.
Yeah, and then the other one that's on brand and kind of on my heart is Buck O'Neill, who is my first baseman.
He was on my list as well. Yeah, I was kind of holding out hope that maybe I'd get to name him as a manager at the end, but
yeah,
it's a good pick.
What's great with Buck O'Neill is he could actually finally get in the Hall of Fame this year. I interviewed Fay Vincent for Sporting News a few years ago, and the Vincent I think he chaired the special committee that was convened for the 2006 election where, what was that? I want to say 17 Negro League contributors got in, and O'Neill was famously overlooked for that. And Vincent told me, we made a big mistake. O'Neill should have gone in. And so hopefully that can be rectified like this election. I mean, one of the best things that's happened since that election is initially that was supposed to close the door on the Negro Leagues, and the Hall of Fame thankfully realized that was an egregious decision. And so O'Neill is eligible again, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I think he's still underrated as a player.
I have something to say about O'Neill, and I really think that he doesn't fit in anywhere except as a contributor. And the problem is the Hall doesn't have a category called contributor. They have a pioneer one, but they don't utilize. And actually the pioneers that got elected have been thrown in under the executives, and it doesn't really look like they're pioneers. Candy Cummins was not an executive. George Wright, maybe he was an executive of his own sporting goods company, but he was not an executive. So to me, he fits in more of a category like contributor. And some people will say Frank Jobe should be in, and Bill James and that kind of thing. To me, I think the Hall should look at creating a contributor category. I think they kind of blew it when they created the Buck O'Neill Award.
Yeah.
Instead of creating an award for him, they should have said, we're going to have a contributor category, and he's going to be our first inductee into the Hall as a contributor. That's what I would have liked to have seen. And so I think it's kind of, I don't know where they would put him as the way they look at him. To me, he belongs in. What he did as a coach and just being on the baseball movie with Ken Burns there, He was
Oh,
the
yeah.
star of that. And, you know, the Basketball Hall of Fame puts anyone in almost, but they, you know, they do similar kind of things, that they promote the sport, you know, they grow the NBA, they have a good chance of getting in the Hall of Fame. And I think that was huge after, especially, you know, with the strike and all that kind of stuff, to have that movie. And he was a star of that movie.
Really was.
Yeah,
I don't want to gloss over the Lou Whitaker pick as well. Just a slightly less famous Alan Trammell, to be honest. Better hitter, not quite the fielding metrics and the high-profile position, but very similar in value, and I think that's a tremendous pick as well.
Yeah, and I think you know, I think Whitaker would have won more Gold Gloves if not for Frank White as well. And you know, as someone that grew up a Yankees fan in that era, I know Willie Randolph never stood a chance of winning the Gold Glove with those two guys kicking around at the same time.
Yeah, Willie Randolph has to be the player with the most WAR fielding runs that never won a Gold Glove during Gold Glove era, that is. All right. Dan, you're up again.
All right. Well, while we're on the subject of second baseman, I'm gonna pick a guy. Let's see if Adam fills it in. No, he's not gonna guess just yet. But I'm gonna pick a guy that I think, he's making money. You know, with Trammell getting in, you know, you hear all this. Well, maybe now is the time for Lou Whitaker. You know, and I know neither one of these guys got any support when they were on the ballot. But I feel like Lou Whitaker's name just comes up so much more. I mean, do you ever hear about Bobby Grich?
I mean, I tried for a while, and it's just hard to get people to care because of his 266 lifetime batting average. I mean, for me, it's funny. Like, I was debating if I wanted to do Whitaker or Grich, and if we didn't have positional restrictions, like, I just take them both. Yeah, I mean, I figured Whitaker's a slightly better candidate than Grich, but you could probably make an argument either way.
Well, Grich could play short.
Interesting.
Could have been your shortstop, but it's too late now. Well, I mean, you'd have to make a pretty strong argument for that. But I mean, he did start. I believe he started out as a shortstop. There's obviously, I can put my glasses on to see to see Adam's screen here. Yeah, you know, he was moved off a shortstop somewhat early in his career. So I guess
that would have been after probably Davey Johnson left, right? Or was Davey Johnson? Well, I thought he was on the Orioles, or I could be totally wrong on that.
Yeah. He was. Isn't that where he hit 40? No, wait, or that was the Braves.
No, he did that for the Braves.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah. So yeah, I just think Rich is you know, I'm not saying he's definitely a Hall of Famer, but I think he just doesn't get the you know, the underground or whatever you want to call us support that he should compared to some other guys.
It'll be really interesting when Chase Utley, you know, becomes eligible in a few years, and I think he actually might do okay with the writers, just because the electorate has just really shifted its thinking so much. And if and when that happens, I could see Grich getting a boost because he and Utley, they're just such similar candidates.
Yeah.
I think milestones like not getting 2,000 hits is a big deal, especially in the voters' minds in the past. In fact, I don't think there's anyone in the baseball writers that have had less than 2,000 hits that's gotten elected since God knows when. So
1959, or as far as when careers ended, I think it was Larry Doby. I'm not positive. Yeah.
Oh, he was elected by the veterans too. So.
Yeah.
And
that's just the veterans. Jeez.
And Grich is just one of those, guys with a sabermetric profile before sabermetrics existed. And, I mean, look at that on base percentage, 105 points higher than his batting average,
Right.
And nobody gave a shit, I mean,
right. I would
take, if you gave me the choice between a guy, 300, 370, 440 versus 260, 370, 440. I mean, okay, you'll take the batting average. but there was always something, and I think this goes back to my Stratomatic baseball days. Bobby Grich, maybe not the perfect, profile as far as this is concerned. Maybe the power isn't tremendous there, but just these, when I picked the Stratomatic team and I decided who was going to start, it was like I wrote down the on base chances, for each guy on their card, and it, just sitting there rolling the dice and it just made you, and just trying to figure out the probabilities of a guy doing this or not. It made you really appreciate the value of like not making outs.
Gritch also played in 2 really hard hitters parks too. I mean, I interviewed him a few years ago, and he was telling me about how hard it is to hit at Memorial Stadium at night, and then obviously, I mean, Angel Stadium. I don't know if people understand enough even now, like how hard it is to hit in that ballpark. I mean, it's the place where aging sluggers, take lots of money and then their numbers just go to crap. I mean, Albert Pujols is only the latest example, but you put Gritch in a good hitter's park for his career, and his average probably jumps 20 points.
Yeah.
Right. I brought this page up just because it shows his slash stats compared to his the league average. His batting average, even though it was 266, was still, quite a few points above league average. But OBP, 371 compared to 324. And where people don't give Gritch enough credit is his slugging percentage. 424 is that much higher than the 384 league average. You don't get that from a second baseman very much.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right. Get on base and hit home runs,
All right. So I'm going to move to the catcher position. Very important position. Now, do people know who I'm going to take? I don't know.
No.
I don't know, but I'm taking Thurman Munson.
I was almost gonna take it. I thought I could wait.
Right. This spot was my Munson or my Gritch. So, so one of them was not staying past our picks.
Yeah.
And he's an interesting candidate because, he died prematurely, and that cut off his career totals. But this is a Hall of Fame career for a catcher. I mean, 116 OPS plus, 292 average, and just an incredible defender. The Hall of Stats loves him, and one of the reasons why it loves him despite the low number of games is we give a little boost to catchers based on the amount of time that they caught. So rather than there are other frameworks that just say, oh, catchers get this type of boost, or catchers are only compared to other catchers. But we give an additional boost based on the number of games that you caught as an overall percentage of your games. And he just caught and caught and caught. And that gives him a boost among so many other catchers because he was just always out there. And the way he produced while always out there every day just is next level. He so much award hardware on ballot MVP ballots all the time. Very strong individual seasons. He's got a 6, he's got a 7, additional 5s, all behind the plate. Even the 100 derby seasons, the 300 hitting seasons, all-star games, postseason. He's not overrated because he's a Yankee. He was just so damn good. And he was an easy pick for me because I absolutely love Thurman Munson and his Hall of Fame case.
Yeah, I mean he's in the top 3 for me as far as people I didn't know whose deaths really affected me. Of course I was 12 years old, but yeah, and I mean. Part of the thing working against him, I suppose, I don't even know if people talk about this anymore. Maybe Joe knows, but I mean, he definitely was considered the 3rd best catcher of his time. Although, Ted Simmons was probably considered the 4th best then, if that's the case.
Wait. I would say 2nd best.
Well, I think people.
He was the best catcher in the American League in the 70s.
I think people thought Fisk was better. I don't know. I mean, I seem to recall at the time thinking that people thought Fisk was better, overall, but look, I'm not going to, you know.
Fisk was hurt a lot, and it's ironic that he became the career games caught leader because he missed a lot of time in the 70s.
Yeah.
When he went to the White Sox, he just became a machine, and he just he caught, was 140, 150 games a year. So I always rate Munson higher in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to complain about that. I just think, I just recall even as a Yankee fan thinking that we make this argument, but I think Fisk is probably a little bit better. I don't know, but but either way, I mean, he's the second or third best, catcher of his time, and the best catcher of his era is arguably the best catcher of all time. So, it's like the Raines Henderson thing, but I don't know, and I'm not going to begrudge Ted Simmons, but I part of me wants to say I don't know how Ted Simmons is in the Hall of Fame and Thurman Munson's not, but we don't like to, I know that's a lame argument to make. We shouldn't make those arguments, but
it's a longevity thing. I mean, he got the high career totals, and unfortunately, Munson was not given the chance to get those, and that's really all it is.
And I think Simmons has Hall of Fame credentials, and he's in, but I guess that's another thing. It's back. It's sort of the on a different level, the Grich versus Whitaker thing. Like how does Ted Simmons get in and Munson doesn't even get like an inkling of support?
Right.
So I don't know.
And you would think he would have the Yankee status on his side to push him over that line, but it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest myths about the Hall of Fame is that, like, if a guy plays in New York, suddenly, if he was playing in Cincinnati instead or whatever, or wherever, he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I mean, there's so many guys I can think of, Charlie Killer and Allie Reynolds and Tommy Henrik. I mean, they're not in the Hall of Fame.
Randolph.
Yeah, Randolph's another.
Greg Nettles, David Cohn, Roger Clemens. There's so many. Guidry. Hell, David Wells. He's got better numbers than Jack Morris. But anyway, I won't go there. All right. Yeah, so that's my pick, Munson. I'm very, very pleased with that pick.
All right.
Brings us to Joe. Twofer.
Now I'm going to go to center field, it looks like. And there's a few guys I like in center field. And I know you guys are going to pick a couple of them. So I'm going to go with my guy in center field. And Adam probably knows who that is. But I'm going to go with Paul Hines in center field.
Oh, wow.
Paul Hines, possibly, I believe, the first deaf player to play in the game, not Dummy Hoy.
Watch it, Joe.
And I'm starting to promote that now a little bit because there's articles going back to at least 1879 where Hines was deaf. So, but also, if you look at his career total, imagine if he played 150 game seasons. He would easily have 3,000 hits.
Also, he's a Triple Crown winner too. That's another thing in his favor.
Yeah, he was a tremendous player. He won with Providence, and I think he was just a great player, and he's underrated. And I would like to see him get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just I can't agree more. Just a great player. If you look how short these seasons are. These aren't because he was like hurt or on the bench. These are because that's how many games his team played. If you project his entire career up to 162 games, I mean, it's kind of ludicrous because it's close to 4,000 hits if you do it that way. But just a hitting machine. And you've got another one right away.
Oh, again. All right. Oh, boy. All right. Maybe I'll just keep going. I'll go over to right field. And I am not going to be anywhere near the 19th century for this pick. But I'm going to go with a guy by the name of Dwight Evans. Who I remember going to Chicago with a guy named Dan McCloskey. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to see two Hall of Famers. I'm going to see Carlton Fisk on the White Sox and Dewey Evans on the Baltimore Orioles. And
you were ahead of your time then.
Yes, I thought he was a Hall of Famer then, and I think he played. I'm not sure. So he's not in the Hall of Fame, but I did get to see Bobby Thigpen get his 50th save. So that was kind of a milestone.
That was a big moment. Yeah.
After Dan got $20 stolen from him, but we won't talk about that. But I think that Dewey belongs in, and you know, I like Dave Parker too, and I probably like him more now that he's not doing well. And you know, that great documentary on MLB Network this year has boosted Parker in my eyes a little bit. But I still think Dewey's the guy. I think he had slightly more votes than Parker on the last ballot, so he may be the next guy that possibly gets in on that era committee, since he had the most support, I think, that didn't get in.
Yeah, it seems like momentum's been starting to build for Evans. I mean, he has a lot of high profile people who, you know, support his case. I mean, Bill James is you know, obviously one of them, and yeah, I mean, he's a guy who really, the longer you look at his numbers, you start to appreciate him more. I mean, just really one of the most underrated players in baseball history.
Yeah, if he hit a little bit better, you know, in his youth, I think it would have been a no-brainer. But his defense was so spectacular. I mean, he's one of the few guys that you watch the baseball game, and the defense, you were waiting for a ball hit to him, because you know with that arm, he's gonna nail someone at the plate or running to third or whatever. It's a tremendous ball player.
Yeah, you look at the fielding column here, and if this early career defensive peak had aligned with this later career offensive peak, yeah, you're looking at Mookie Betts. Just and if he had done it over 20 seasons, then you're looking at like, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, everything I was saying about Grich applies to him too, except for Evans was better defensively than Grich. You know, I wanted him on my team. But that's cool when we get to talk about.
And you shouldn't be drafting any Red Sox.
My first pick was a Red Sox.
That's going to bring it back to me. We actually have a couple positions that I still have my top player on the board. So I think I got to make sure I get one of those. And I'm going to go to third base for this one. And I'm going to be taking Scott Rowland.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And Scott Rowland, the best thing to do with Scott Rowland is just literally to look at his offensive numbers, because people seriously just don't remember how incredibly good this guy was. Just the 281, 364, 490, 122 OPS plus, 316 home runs. And you combine that with this otherworldly, like Brooks Robinson, Ozzie Smith, almost that level fielding.
Right. I mean, yeah.
And it's backed up by all the Gold Gloves as well.
Yeah, arguably the best defensive third baseman. Yeah.
And you wonder how the heck is he not getting in? And the seasons here on defense, just the number of double-digit seasons, and the number that is so close as well. And then you look at the offensive column, and he's right there as well. There are very few players that have that type of bat and that type of glove, and at a premium position like third base. I mean, it's not quite shortstop, but it's very close. And Scott Rowland's my guy.
Yeah. Why does he not quote unquote feel like a Hall of Famer? You know.
Well, for me, I think he had some injuries towards, you know, this middle part of his career, which I think cost him some games and stuff. And then you realize he had a great year like a couple years later, you know, when he was healthy again. And
right.
So I think there was a time, and this happened with some other guys too. For me personally, even like Dave Parker was one of those guys who was at the top of the baseball world, and then he kind of disappeared for a few years. And then if you re-examine his numbers with the Reds, it's like, holy cow, he had a couple great years with the Reds. So, I mean, there's guys that they fall off your radar, but then sometimes they come back, and maybe some people don't, you know, hold that against them because he did miss some time. But he still played over 2,000 games, which is to me, you play 2,000 games, that's a pretty good career. So
to me, he's very similar to Larry Walker, where he had the issues with staying on the field. He had the relatively low home run total for his era, but all the supporting numbers point to a Hall of Famer, including the defense, the Gold Gloves, and everything. So I think, and you're seeing a similar trajectory with his voting as well. He's going up. And I think by the time the 10 years is up, it's going to be very interesting to see if he makes it. And I never would have thought that he would have made it. Just like in year 3, we never would have thought Larry Walker would have made it.
I think my bold prediction with Roland is I could see him actually making it in the next 2 to 3 years. I think the fact that he had such a jump this last time, I think it could really start to be pronounced over the next few years. Because I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the ballot's super strong over the next couple of elections for the writers. I think we're going into a little bit of a dip, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we are for sure.
Yeah.
Let me bring that up.
Next year, there's no newcomers, so.
Yeah, we're looking at Hudson, Burley, Hunter, Barry Zito as like the big candidates next year. And even that's the golden days and that's the early baseball. But then the next year, I think it's actually, we're talking A-Rod and Poppy. Those will be interesting to see.
Yeah, my bold prediction is I see Roland topping 50% of the vote in the next election. And then it's just a matter of how quick he can get to 75 from there.
Right. How close did he get?
I think he got 30% last time.
35. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think he could clear 50% this time. You're right. Brings us back to Dan.
All right. I've been cramming for the last couple minutes here. I feel like my last 3 picks were pretty obvious to me in terms of relative to others at the position. Probably not to you guys, but in this one there's other guys that are good at his position, but I'm gonna finally be a homer and pick a guy that I want, and that's Greg Nettles.
Oh, I wasn't fast enough to type it.
That
good at predicting your picks.
Did you have? Oh, yeah. I meant to see if you were. So it was the homer that tipped you off, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about going, trying to go like all Yankees or whatever, But I mean, you can make a case for Munson and Randolph and Nettles, but there's a couple other third basemen that are remaining that are arguably as good as Nettles. I just like Nettles, and I'll say, and not to detract from another one that may get picked and was already mentioned, but and I was definitely a homer, but I just couldn't understand back in the day how Nettles only won 2 Gold Gloves and Buddy Bell won like 6. But I guess the prevailing sentiment was that Nettles was he made these out of the world spectacular plays, and Bell certainly was somewhat flashy too. He was more steady. But the Nettles and I'm not gonna make a Jack Morris argument, but that one World Series game that he won, that he saved Guidry's ass with some amazing plays. Like it just seemed like he was always doing that. So
awesome. I love how extreme he is. He's got the 248 average, but the 390 home runs. He's got the super defense. We're talking 140 runs here as well. Just the third base class in this draft that we have here. Everyone is going to have a tremendous third baseman. Third basemen have been so overlooked by the Hall.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite players growing up. So. He spelled O'Neill.
Yeah, the top of my list as well. Graham, what you got?
Sweet. So yeah, I'm going to knock out third base too. And I don't know. It's funny. So like one of the parameters for this is we're supposed to pick guys who we think should be in the Hall of Fame. And I honestly, I'm going to say Ken Boyer's my pick. In terms of sabermetrics, like Darrell Evans or Buddy Bell might be a better selection, but I don't know. It's weird. Boyer just feels more like a Hall of Famer to me. I don't know why that is necessarily.
Yeah, I kind of think that too. I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, I mean, maybe it's the one, he didn't play for one team for his entire career, but the one, essentially that one team thing and it being a marquee team. Yeah, I think people I think he's one of those guys that was like Garvey. Like people thought of him as a Hall of Famer and then somehow he wasn't,
Well,
and Boyer has a way better claim than Garvey, but
he's hitting 300 every year. He's getting Gold Gloves every year. He's on the MVP ballot every year. That definitely helps.
Yeah.
Then he went to the Mets, and that took care of his. That just wiped him off the ballot forever,
And I will say, and this is going to bring my dad's homerism into it, but my dad says Clete Boyer was better defensively than Ken.
Yeah,
that seems like it's pretty well known. I think Clete Boyer is
okay. Oh. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you guys being better history buffs than I do. He says that he sort of invented the third baseman getting set in that really low crouch position. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you guys do know, but
I mean, maybe that's just me with Clete Boyer. Growing up playing Earl Weaver baseball in the Apple II, and Clete Boyer was a machine. Like he was a vacuum cleaner on that side of the infield. So maybe that's just my youth.
Just couldn't hit well enough to win as many Gold Gloves, I guess, right?
Right.
I have his autograph too, right, Joe? So do you, right?
Yeah, I got a picture of him hanging on my wall in my office.
Nice.
Yeah, I gave mine to my dad.
Gentlemen, we've done 4 rounds. Now we're going to pick up the pace a little bit.
Okay.
All right, we're kicking it off with Graham again.
All right, Kenny Lofton, who's going to be my leadoff hitter, and specifically, like I kind of think of Kenny Lofton's career in 2 halves. So I'm specifically drafting mid-90s Kenny Lofton. I'm not drafting the 2000s Kenny Lofton, who hit like 270 for a different team every year. But yeah, this is the Kenny Lofton who is hitting 325 and stealing 70 bases, and being really good sabermetrically.
Yeah, he certainly is awesome sabermetrically. Specifically, I don't know if there's anybody that has that batting runs total, base running total, and fielding total. He's just very unique in that sense. And yeah, does have a very top-heavy career in terms of the front half, but he held on, and that helped him get some of those career numbers that people are looking for. And I'm kind of surprised that he was one and done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He'll be a good veterans candidate at some point.
I think so. Dan, what you got?
Yeah, it's interesting that Graham mentions his leadoff hitter, because I thought about adding a wrinkle on this, and at the end we say what our lineup would be or something like that. But I haven't been thinking that at all. So, but if there's time, I'd still be up for it. I'm gonna stick with the same position as Graham, and I'm gonna take Jim Edmonds.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, Adam, I didn't give you enough of an intro to try to guess that one. But Edmonds, the defense, the out of this world defense, certainly, and certainly not a one-dimensional player when it comes to that. Obviously, power, speed, everything. I don't know. I don't know. He's another guy like Roland. I don't know why.
I was going to say like Roland Walker, just some injury troubles that really hampered their ability to rack up the numbers. But
yeah, I guess there it is. Less than 8,000 plate appearances. Like Joe said, like he didn't get to 2,000 hits,
or the 400 homers. So yeah, those. If he got there,
yeah.
The individual seasons though, a couple of 40s, few 30s.
Yeah.
I thought of him as a Hall of Famer. So
Nice.
I think he's a nice pick.
Oh gosh, that brings it to me again.
Sneaks up on you.
Have we literally taken one pitcher? Wow.
Yeah, we have. I've been looking at that list and thinking
I know, it's interesting. Yeah.
There's a lot of solid ones left.
We'll save the pitchers. So then I think based on what's left at that position after this player is off the board, I think I got to take Andrew Jones. I'm going to put Edmonds here.
All right.
So I'm sticking with center field as well. That means we have all taken our Well, that literally means I did not have to take Andrew Jones yet because everybody else has taken their center fielders. Way to go, dumbass. All right.
No, he could.
I'm going to stick with it.
You know, it gives proper respect to select Andrew Jones at this point, though, because I mean he's right there in the discussion with Lofton and Edmonds and Dwight Evans. I mean, those are all guys that you can talk about kind of interchangeably.
Yet another sub 2,000 hit guy, but he had the power, and he had the Gold Gloves. Just find it very surprising that he's struggled, although he made some gains last year, like several similarly sabermetric candidates did. So I have faith that he could make it one day. Maybe not on the BBWAA ballot, but one day.
Yeah. I guess it's that fizzling at 29 thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But.
All right.
Got
Yes,
two
I'm
Joes
next.
here.
Well, third base, there's a lot of, I would love to say like Ron Say, Labe Cross, Bob Elliott, Stan Hack, there's a bunch of guys, but I'm going to go with John Beckwith of the Negro Leagues. I always thought him as a shortstop, but I was playing around and he actually played more games at third according to the Seams Heads Negro League database. So that's why I'm going to choose him as a third baseman. And just tremendous ball player. And he's one of those guys that just missed the boat on 2006. And he probably just missed the cut. But you could see his OPS plus there as 168. And he's really an elite player. And I really think he's one of those guys that when you start seeing pioneers and pioneers of black baseball, Negro Leagues, his name will probably come up a few times. And so I'm going to use him as my third baseman.
Did he bat right-handed or left-handed, Joe?
We got right-handed up here.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's kind of Joe's weak spot, in case you guys didn't know that.
I'm actually not great at those either. I mean, I know guys' numbers and everything, but a lot of times, like I don't even really think, who hit left or right-handed. I probably should watch a bit more baseball than I do.
I only think of baseball players as one single statistic and don't think of the game at all.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of John Beckwith games, so.
Nice.
So, but that's who I went with. I get another pick, don't I?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll hit a pitcher. I could go with a 19th century guy or a Negro Leagues guy, but for me, the one guy that I saw pitch who's not in the Hall of Fame, because I love the 70s pitchers, and then I think there's one guy who is just coming up short and not getting the votes needed to get in, and he's still alive. I'd like to see him get in while he's alive, and that would be Louis Tiant.
Oh, sure.
I think Louis Tiant is a very solid pick. I think he belongs. He has the personality. He had some great years in the 60s, before I was even born. And I just think he's someone, for whatever reason, is not getting support, even in the Veterans Committees. And he had a couple odd years where, he was injured and stuff. But I think for his era, I think he's a solid pick, and he's kind of a favorite of mine, so I would pick him. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot of other pitchers out there that I'm overly crazy about. I know Schilling I believe will get in next year, so I didn't want to pick him. And I could have picked a couple of 19th century guys or like a Dick Redding or someone like that, but Louis Tion's my guy.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to draft Schelling because I don't want him and Barry Bonds on the same team. That could get real ugly real fast.
Yeah, Gary Sheffield's still on the board too. That'll be fun. All right. Oh, that's me. I'm up. So I think that I need second base. I need right field. I need left field. Oh, I'm going to take my corners. All right. So I am going to go with a more modern right fielder. And I'm going to take Reggie Smith, who might be one of the very best Hall of Fame candidates that, I don't know, maybe I've said this enough that it doesn't really apply anymore, that like it seems literally nobody talks about.
Yeah.
It's surreal. I mean, the fact that he just did get the 2,000 hits, so he fills that check mark. The 137 OPS for a player who played 17 years, got over 300 home runs, 2,000 hits. Also, very, very strong defensive numbers. He's got at least one Gold Glove here to back it up too. Some All-Star nods. Like I get so confused as to why he doesn't get brought up more. And it's not like he has a 137 OPS, but that's because he hit like 240. No, he hit 287. Right. Slugging percentage is very close to 500 for a player from his era. It's very surprising to me that he's struggled more than anyone, it seems.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it.
But it's but it still is the era. I mean, he played in a pitcher's era, so his counting stats aren't flashy. So that's what
Not a lot of 30 homer seasons, not a lot of 100 ribby seasons. That I think that's what catches the Orioles' attention. And I thought he was a nice player. I was a fan of the Dodgers in the late 70s when they were playing those Yankees, and he was one of those 30 home run guys on that team with Garvey's another guy who doesn't look too good these days, but when he played, he was considered a Hall of Famer.
Right.
As a Yankees fan watching him against us in the World Series, he was feared, like Jim Rice.
Nice. Dan, you're up.
Oh, I'm up?
Yes.
All right. Well, I haven't picked a real premier just yet. So I'm going to go with another. Well, I don't know if it's another because I haven't picked one before, but I'm gonna go with Manny Ramirez.
Oh, sure.
And I'm gonna reserve the right to shift him around, but I think I'm gonna put him in left field.
Oh, whoops! Yeah,
and I think he shows up as a right fielder, but I think he's the most interchangeable of all, right?
I think he is a left fielder.
He is a left fielder?
I had him as a left fielder.
Oh, he is a left fielder. Okay, never mind. All right.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I need a left fielder. Well, I guess I'm getting my fourth guy then.
I mean, obviously another guy that not for
no need to bring up his stats, but here we go.
Steroid stuff, he'd be a Hall of Famer, no doubt.
There's a lot of Red Sox on this list. Did you notice that?
Mm.
Even Reggie Smith, he had his best years with the Red Sox.
Right.
And
yeah, look at that. How many straight years can you have a top 10 MVP finish like that? Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just unbelievable,
The end of his career was just so surreal, though, where he's like toiling in the minors for different organizations and just not even sniffing the majors. And now, there's talk of him going to play in Taiwan. I mean, I love it. I love when guys play forever in the independent or low minor leagues. But it's just, you wouldn't have predicted that with like Manny Ramirez from like 2002.
Yeah. Wow.
Maybe he'll try to break Minos's record for decades played at some point. Maybe he'll just come at
beloved
the
Manny
Mets.
Minoso and Manny Ramirez. Wow.
Can Julio Franco already do that? No?
All right, we got double Graham now.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, we're getting down here, and obviously haven't picked any pitchers yet. So I think I'm just going to knock them both out now. So the first one is going to seem slightly unusual because he's not super great by WAR, but man, I think if you look at like his postseason case and just peak value, he's up there, and you can make a case for him. So that's going to be Oral Hershiser, who I'm not positive if he's a Hall of Famer, but I mean, he's one of those guys, if he went in, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. The next one, I'm probably burning a pick too high, but I want to give this guy his due. And also, I don't want to have to worry about pitchers anymore because it seems like the kind of thing I can forget about until the end of this and then have some real crappy pitchers. But the guy I'm going to go with is John Donaldson, the Negro Leagues pitcher, who, you know, another one of the most underrated players in baseball history. He's just phenomenal pitcher. And a lot of his career actually was pre-Negro Leagues. He was, you know, a guy who I think he was on the All Nations team in the 19 teens, and yeah, just a real solid pitcher.
Excellent. I know. I love these hipster picks that are even more hipster than my picks. Hershiser. I love that he had these 3 seasons here, his 3 All-Star seasons. One of them, he was 16-16. Then he blew up for 23-8, and then 15-15. But they were all so similar in value. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that 1988 postseason was like Scott-esque.
Oh, yeah. The way he finished that season, what was it, 59 1/3 scoreless innings to end the year? And
Yeah,
then he
you're
allowed
not
one right away the next year.
You're not supposed to do this with the Hall of Fame, but honestly, I'm drafting Oral Hershiser from 1988 for this.
Well, it's funny. We all remember that year, but if we look at it by WAR, yeah, 7.2. But that 89 season where he went 500, he was right there.
Oh, sure.
Great pitcher. All right, Dan, you're up again.
All right.
What do you need? You need a catcher, a first base, a right field, and a pitcher.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna seal. I'm gonna seal my fate as I'm gonna have the best. I'm gonna have the best pitching staff, and I'm gonna pick Kurt Schilling to go with Clemens and the 2 biggest assholes as well.
Good. Now I don't have to pick him.
I didn't want Schilling, but I figured what the heck at this point. You know, it's funny. Like, I mean, Graham brought up before we started recording about that there's a Jim McCormick for Hall of Fame Twitter account. You know, there's an everybody for Hall of Fame Twitter account. Is there a Kurt Schilling for Hall of Fame Twitter account?
Yeah, it's Kurt Schilling account.
Kurt Schilling himself, right? Yeah, I mean, you know, I really was hoping that he wasn't going to get in the same year as Jeter. Because just, well, I mean, I guess if Red Sox fans were going to turn out for him, then it could be a fiasco, but there's probably not that many Red Sox fans that are going to turn out for him anyway. You know, anyhow, before we knew his personality, before he had that, you know, awesome World Series in 2001 with the Diamondbacks. You know, I love that guy in Philadelphia. I think I wanted him every year, and you know, when I played rotisserie or fantasy baseball, I just love the peripheral numbers that he had, and for the longest time, I thought this guy, like, he's just not quite putting it together, but he's gonna put it together, you know, and I guess he did.
In that fantasy league, Dan, I had my bullpen consisted of Pedro Martinez and Kurt Schilling one year, with Greg Maddux and Smoltz as starting pitchers.
That's
Jose Rio and Eddie Bennis.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, you know, Joe, Ramon Martinez is still available, so you could get kind of close to Pedro for this if you want.
Yeah.
I used to love Ramon, actually.
Oh, yeah, he was great.
He was great.
Did a couple great years. Until he went to the Red Sox.
Anyway, all right. Enough. No more Red Sox on my team.
Oh, man. So we're still at a point that I literally have no idea who I'm going to take. But I feel like I should take a pitcher. And I know who I want to take for my second pitcher. But the first one I've been stalling. And I think I just really need a damn good pitcher who is really good in his prime. I am taking Johan Santana.
Ah.
All right. Nice.
And I'm taking him for his peak, which was a very difficult decision. John.
Call that the Graham rule. We're taking.
Yeah, except it's a little bit more than 1988 here.
I mean, Santana's kind of Sandy Koufax. I mean, it's a real.
Really
is. Yeah. He is not quite, but he is. Yeah.
And it pains me a little bit because I really wanted to take Rick Russell, but I am not going to be taking Rick Russell in this draft, and it hurts me a little bit because I love Rick Russell, but I think Johan Santana was needed to kind of offset my other pick I'm going to make. So there we go. Johan Santana is my ace.
All right,
we're up to Joe.
Up to Joe. Oh boy. All right, I guess I'll do second base.
Oh no, you don't have second base? Shit.
I don't have second base. I have to stick to my guns about my guys who I think belong in the Hall most, one being Doc Adams, who I put as an honorable mention at shortstop. But for second base, I'm going to have to put a pioneer down, Bud Fowler. He obviously will be listed as a pioneer if he gets elected to the Hall someday, hopefully. But I wanted him to be on my team. Ross Barnes is another guy that I love.
Oh, sure.
And if I was picking a player, despite the fact he was a pioneer, he didn't have 10 major league seasons, he probably would fall into the pioneer category. But he was a second baseman. We have numbers for him. Bud Fowler got lost to history because of the color of his skin. I mean, he was more than just the first guy to be in, professional and organized baseball. That his skin color was black, but he was just a great player. He started out as a catcher and a pitcher. He went on to become considered a second baseman. He tried to form a Negro League. He was a founder of the Page Fence Giants. He was in baseball for 30 plus years, and to me, it's just he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And after Doc Adams, I would put Bud Fowler in as my number 2 guy. So I'm going to put Bud Fowler as my second baseman for this draft here.
Nice. And who do you think you might take next?
I get to go again, huh? Oh man, do I really want? What do I got? Shortstop. Oh, I got first.
Do you
base.
have shortstop?
First base. First base. Again, I think I'm going to have to go with 19th century. And Adam, have you picked the first baseman yet? You have.
So you can pick Joe.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joe Starr. And
Nice.
I'm picking him for his 1860s decade when he was one of the top power hitters in the game. Plus, he first guy really to be popularized playing behind the bag at first, according to the accounts of the day, and played baseball for 27 years. He started in like 1859 and he kept going, and it doesn't look like an amazing career when you just look at his stats on the screen there. There's not a lot of black ink or whatever, but he was 28 years old when the National Association started, so he had already played for many years, one of the best players in the game, and he hit the ton out of the ball when he was in his early 20s. So he's kind of like, it's like Albert Pujols before he got traded, before he left the Cardinals. Those years are missing from Joe Start's career. And
Right.
I just think he's a tremendous guy and should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's like a poor man's Cap Anson. I mean, you figure pre-1871, if there'd been professional baseball, yeah, you could probably tack another 6-8 years onto his career, and he approaches that Anson level longevity.
All right. I have one thing about Joe Start. We've talked about other Hall of Fame worthy players who have struggled to get 2,000 hits. Joe Start had 1,417, but he literally had no games on that record before turning 28. And look at the game totals once he did start in the league, and he still got to 1,417. This guy is like an easy 3,000 hit guy if he had a full career with 162 game seasons. 300 hitter, 120 plus OPS plus, just a great defensive reputation as well. I love the Joe Start pick. He was very high on my list, but I just happened to get Dick Allen. But Allen, O'Neill, and Joe Start were my first basemen. And that brings it back to me. Let's see. Maybe I should take that second pitcher just because I kind of talked about him so much, because he's a different one as well. He's also someone I can use as a DH if we did end up playing a DH game.
Wes Farrell.
And it's Wes Farrell. He is, I don't even know how to say it. He's like, if he was like an indie band, I would be so into him. Wes Farrell is so quirky, so weird.
He's Pup, or no, wait.
Mountains of Wes. Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. So almost 200 wins in a career that was shortened by injuries before the time he was 30. He struggled to try to come back, but never could. But these individual seasons that he had high ERAs. But when you compare it to the times, he's the one pitching to Babe Ruth. Somebody's got to do it. So, none of the 1930s Yankees had to do it. It's Wes Farrell that has to do it. Lefty Grove. Those two guys going against those lineups. And he was just phenomenal. Through age 28, just an unbelievable pitcher. He won 20 games 6 times. But then there's I should probably mention too, that he's got these super high WAR totals as well as a pitcher. But then he also hit 280, 351, 446. And you compare that to the league average, which already we compared his pitching to it. It's a hitter's era, but he still was an average hitter. Pitching record for home runs, I think 37 of them were as a pitcher. One of them was as a pinch hitter. Just one of the most unique players of all time. And I'm thrilled to have him as my second pitcher.
Yeah, his 1935 season, my goodness, wins 25 games, hits 347, second in MVP voting. I mean, that's probably one of the greatest seasons that nobody talks about.
Right. I mean, you look at his hitting stat. He had a 2.4 WAR hitting season once in 179 plate appearances. That's crazy. And like you said, in 1935, that's when he also won 25 games to lead the league. And
what would his WAR have been like from that year? That looks like an 8 or 10 WAR kind of season.
2.4 plus 8.2.
Yeah.
You're talking a 10.6 WAR season. Yeah. In 1930, he had 8.3 and then 1.1 as well. So he's just under another 10 WAR season there. So Wes Farrell, just a totally unique hipster pick, but I love him.
Adam, I like Wes Farrell so much that if I was going to take him, I would pass on him just to let you have him because he just belongs with you. I love you. I love you guys together.
That's awesome.
Another Red Sox.
Right. We got Dan.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a guy like sort of like Ken Boyer. None of us ever really saw him play in his prime. Well, maybe Joe and I saw the tail end of his career. I don't remember much I remember knowing of him. But he's another guy that feels like a Hall of Famer when you look at his stats, and he had to feel like a Hall of Famer in his prime. 10 straight All-Star games.
Wow.
10 straight All-Star games, 5 straight Gold Gloves, and I need a catcher, Bill Freehan. Yeah. I mean,
that string of. Oh.
He's a guy I can imagine, that Detroit Tigers fans just wondering how the hell did Bill Freehan not make it. I mean, but he fizzled out young, and I don't know, I made that knock on Andrew Jones a little bit about him fizzling out at 29 or whatever, but he came into the league at 19 or whatever.
Right.
And Freehan, not quite as young, but his prime, like as you can see from what Adam has pulled up, his prime began at age 22. So, even if he made his 11th All-Star team at 33. I mean, the WAR doesn't love him, but for a catcher, he's still pretty solid. He's in the Hall of Stats, right?
He's just short.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah, WAR doesn't love a lot of catchers.
Right.
But I also think that with catchers, there's a lot that defensively that WAR maybe does not capture. And if you think about Freehand's his defensive, what's the word I'm looking for? His reputation. It's not a plus 28 catcher. He's thought of as higher than that. So I think that there is some leeway we can give there. And I would put Freehan in a heartbeat. I think catchers like him are very rare. Yeah. Love it.
And and no slouch at the plate either. 112
Right.
OPS plus for a catcher. And playing in a time when it's still fairly modern. So there's no picnic catching in the 1960s and 1970s. I mean, not that it was ever a picnic, but
Right.
But anyway.
1840s, I might have been picking.
Well, I mean, I was going to say something, but I didn't want to I don't think it was easy in Deacon White's day either, but they didn't have to, the knees didn't take the wear and tear that they do nowadays.
Don't get me started. They didn't have gloves.
No, I know. Like I said, there's other factors, but.
Yeah, just to touch on that, man, Joe, I thought I was going to get Charlie Bennett because I thought you were going to take Joe Leggett. So.
Yeah. I got some pioneer catchers. I didn't take any of those, but I think Bennett is a standout guy. So.
Well, Charlie Bennett was even second on my list, guys. So.
Oh, really?
I have one catcher left, so I'm wondering if Graham's going to take him, but. You guys took the other catchers I had on my top 4. So,
speaking of Graham, you're up.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, no, Dan. I was going to take Freehan, so I'm a supporter of his case too, and he's in failing health, so it would be good to see him get in. In fact, I wouldn't be stunned to see him actually get in this year because I mean, he's one of the 2 veterans eras. It's going to be up for consideration, and.
Right.
It's not a super strong ballot, so I could potentially see Freehan, getting a nod. But yeah, so since we're down to our last few picks, catcher, I'm the last person to pick on that, so I'm going to save that for my last pick. Shortstop and right field, I'm going to knock those 2 out now. So right field, Gary Sheffield, honestly, is I think he's a good pick to have. I think that'd be a pretty stacked outfield, really. I mean, you got Bonds, Lofton, and Sheffield out there. I mean, that's an outfield that can rake. And then shortstop, I'm going to choose a guy who probably is not the strongest sabermetrically, but he's another guy who's close to my heart just because of, kind of why his career went south. That's going to be Cecil Travis for shortstop. And I'm sure you guys probably know on Travis, but his career was curtailed because he served in World War II and he saw combat. And a couple of things happened. One was he got his feet frozen at the Battle of the Bulge. And And then he also lost his timing as a hitter through, I believe, serving in, I want to say, 4 years, just completely gone to wartime service. So for me, Travis is a guy who I think should have been in a long time ago. And, you know, you look at his peak numbers too, 1941, and really a lot of what he did the several years before that. I mean, he's really just a great player.
Yeah, through age 27, just he looked great. 327 average, no power to speak of, but still the 113 OPS is excellent. And then on a rate basis, his WAR total was 4.4 per 650. Just a very strong player.
Yeah, I mean, WAR-wise, I mean, it's not the most rational of picks, and I understand some of his hitting prowess is due to the era he played in, but he's one of those guys who I'd be fine with him going in.
Cool.
Thought you were going to take Doc Adams.
All right, Dan.
Oh,
what do you got left? You've got a first baseman and a right fielder.
Well, I guess both positions are ones that there's no more competition, right? Hey, so if I cut Kurt Schilling, can I take 2 picks here? Because you taking Wes Farrell reminded me I really want to take Urban Shocker, but
I would allow it.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna do that. But you know, I love Urban Shocker. I'm gonna talk about him for a second.
Let's do it.
I think you know, people don't give him or, well, I mean, whatever. He's ancient now at this point, so no one's really even talking about Urban Shocker. But no, you know, people don't think of him as like a guy that whose career ended early. But he had a, you know, in even the 1927 season with the Yankees, he had a congenital heart defect. He pitched through that. He tried to make a comeback, or he retired, you know, and then tried to make a comeback in 28, and then he died. I mean, this guy was, you know, you know, I think he, you know, I think he should get some career cut short credit, but that's enough anyway. And he was a St. Louis Brown, and you know, I played my first out of the park baseball league game with the 1924 St. Louis Browns, so that I could try to get Urban Shocker in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think I succeeded. But anyway,
he can also swing the bat too. He's Wes Farrell light, not much lighter, but
yeah.
And let's see, suburban. Yeah, and there's this song by some weird guy that made a punk rock song about him called Suburban Shocker. So there you go.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That should be linked on his baseball reference page.
It should be. I'll see what I can do.
About this player, and that could be the line.
I never did finish my Pete Incaviglia song, so I gotta step it up here.
That's my next pick.
I told you I had Pete Incaviglia's autograph, and I lost the ball. And imagine what I could sell it to you for. All right, so I need a first baseman and a right fielder. You know, we're getting down near the end. I don't know if he's the best first baseman left, but for some reason I want to talk about Keith Hernandez.
Oh, sure.
I was writing Helton. Wow, there you
go. Yeah, you know, I don't know. I just think I should have said I want to talk about Seinfeld star Keith Hernandez. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Hernandez is a weird case. You know, as a Yankees fan, I mean, Mattingly's a guy that like certainly felt like a Hall of Famer more than Hernandez did, but obviously Hernandez, you know, stuck around longer. You know, had more consistency. You know, was better defensively, but not by much. But you know, I don't know. Hernandez just is one of those guys. Like he's not the prototype in his position, and I think that hurts him. You know, he just did a lot of things well, and for quite a long time. You know, is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know, maybe not. Yeah, we're looking at 162 home runs from a first baseman, but still, he still had a 128 OPS plus, and he didn't really hit for power. And obviously the defense was great, although it doesn't get you a ton of value at first base. But I don't know. I just like Keith Hernandez. I just think he's definitely he's a borderline Hall of Famer. He's just an interesting case. And I bet you I'm more of an advocate for him than Joe is, and Joe's a Mets fan. But
his defense was special. I mean, you undervalue. You say it's probably undervalued, or it's, you don't get a lot of value out of it. But he's one of those guys that the defense comes out first. So if you've got a Bill Mazeroski, who's a Hall of Famer, for his defense and one homer. Hernandez, he did it at first, and you knew he was a great defensive player just by watching him. There was a little bit more to him than just. I think he did add value, even at a position that you don't normally see that kind of value at first.
Yeah.
I love the guy, and I'm re-examining him lately. And I didn't think he was a Hall of Famer, but I think things have changed recently, and I don't think he would be a bad choice.
Yeah, Hernandez is legit to me. I mean, you make a list of the first basemen who aren't in, and there's quite a few of them, really, because for whatever reason, first base, there's a lot of marquee players who just haven't gotten in. But for me, I think Hernandez is almost up there at the top of the list, out of guys who are no longer on the writers, or excluding guys who are on the writers ballot. I think Hernandez is right up there.
And now that we've all taken our first baseman, I can just say that, like, Helton, McGuire, Palmeiro, those are some big names that didn't make it.
There's a lot left, yeah.
McGriff, yeah.
Delgado, I like Delgado. I think he's worthy of being looked at more deeply.
Yeah.
And I still think Garvey's a Hall of Famer, even though that today's metrics don't do well with him. But when he was playing, he was the face of baseball. He was, he had the streak, and then Ripken came and got his streak, and he was postseason, all-star games. He hit when the camera was on, and I thought he was a Hall of Famer, and I think the perception in Major League Baseball was that he was.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
I think I thought that in the day too, and I was I was around in that era, thinking that Garvey was probably a Hall of Famer. I thought Jim Rice was going to be a Hall of Famer, and obviously he is.
That's where big 200 hit seasons was a big thing in the 70s and early 80s. And
yeah, I think I said this about Pie Trainer once. There is a little. And I don't know if I'm contradicting myself, because I give people like Dwight Evans and Bobby Grich credit for doing things that people didn't give them. Didn't emphasize enough and didn't give them enough credit for in their day. But if your bosses or if your career was being evaluated based on certain things, wouldn't you emphasize those things? And so he hit for a high batting average, but didn't walk a lot. I don't know. Is that should we knock him for that? Whatever. You can look back on it and say yeah, maybe he was a little bit overrated. He wasn't as valued. I don't really think Steve Garvey's a Hall of Famer, but I'm not up in arms about it. But I think there is something to be said for having the skills that were emphasized in the day. And maybe Steve Garvey could have walked more if people paid closer attention to that, or there was more notoriety given to that. I don't know.
Well, what's interesting is then he wouldn't have had the 200 hit seasons because he was walking.
Right.
So then you lose a lot of what Steve Garvey is. So
right.
It's tough.
I don't know. Yeah. And obviously War doesn't think as highly of his defense as people did in the day, but who the hell knows, Anyway.
All right. I'm going to make my second base pick now. And we're going 19th century here. Going with Roscoe Barnes.
All right.
Just he looks like his baseball reference page looks like somebody left a bold text tag open and accidentally made everything bold. But that just means he led the league in everything.
Right.
He didn't hit the year requirement, but that's because he actually played a little bit before the National Association. So to me, those seasons should count. Look at these numbers. They're just ridiculous. He hit 400 repeatedly, 167 OPS plus, even had phenomenal defensive numbers according to WAR. And I think that the reputation of the day stands there. Like, let's look at his entire career, not just, oops, what's going on here? Oh, that's not loaded. But anyway, 28 WAR and 2,500 plate appearances. We're talking.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Ross Barnes,
I love looking at that page.
Yeah, that 20 wins above average too, and 2,500 plate appearances. Good God.
right. I mean, it was tough not to take Jeff Kent there too. I think he would be a solid pick there, but I got to stay on brand and pick the 19th century guy. That was perhaps the best player in baseball for his entire career.
Yeah, I had five
Just to
guys
Joe.
for my second baseman, and Kemp was among those five, while the other guys were taken. So, all right. So it comes down to probably my hardest position at shortstop, and I'm not going to pick Dave Concepcion, even though I love him. Davey, I love you.
If you're watching.
And Graham had a very nice interview with Maury Wills, but
He's going with Nomar, isn't he?
I have I actually put him on my list just for you, but he wasn't going to make the cut.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I got three guys left, and you guys aren't going to pick any of these guys, so I'm going to mention them. It's kind of difficult because I'm a 19th century guy, and I love Dickie Pierce. And I'm not, Doc Adams too, but he was more of a pioneer than a player. But Dickie Pierce played for a long time, like Star, actually played a few years before Star, and tremendous pioneer. But I'm not going to pick him. I love Dick Lundy. I think that he would be a great choice. But I have to go with Grant Home Run Johnson.
Oh, sure.
I think, he crossed he played in the 19th century and the dead ball era, and he was just a tremendous all-around player. And even in our overlooked legend stuff, Adam, we kind of ignore him a little bit because people think of him more as a dead ball era player, but he was just a great all-around player, and he's one of the guys that I'm surprised didn't get elected in 2006. So,
I don't think a lot of people still know who he is. I mean, I've only learned about him through doing my project on the 50 best not in the Hall of Fame, because people kept writing him in, and it was just like, oh, this guy's really good. But yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if more than a small percentage of baseball fans had any idea who he is.
Yeah, the Seams Head does a nice job with his stats too.
Do they?
Seams Heads on a really database, and you can get a quick glance at partial data that they have for him, and you can see his OPS and his longevity. He played for many years, and he only has 14 home runs on that, but he was Home Run Johnson. So that's who my pick was. And I guess my last pick is pitcher. And again, it comes down to a couple of 19th century guys and a Negro League guy. I could pick someone like David Cohn, who I loved. And I think it wasn't for the strikes and for some injuries, he'd already be in the Hall of Fame. but I think I'm going to have to take Bobby Matthews over Dick Redding just because he came first, and I tend to vote for guys who've been waiting the longest. And not only did he get the first professional league win in the National Association, but he's very close to that 300 win plateau, and he actually won more than 300 games if you counted stuff he did in California when he went on a road trip for a few years and stuff like that. And I just think he's an important pitcher, important in the development of the curveball, and I just think he's a fine choice. I think he's probably a better choice than Tommy John or Jim Cott, who both pitched for long.
Why Matthews over Tony Mullane?
I just think he was more of a pioneer, and he started pitching in I think 1868 or 69, and it's just it's close. I think Mullane has his arguments, but I think I'm more of a Bobby Matthews guy.
And 297 wins, and he missed these 2 years here. A year that he had just 3, came back a year that he had 5.
He was also the change pitcher for Providence when they won it all, I believe, and just 31 seasons. His 5th. Yeah.
Sorry to keep talking over you, Joe.
That's all right.
I was going to say the 625 innings. That's just obscene.
Almost as good as leader in the league with 57 strikeouts and 406 innings. And that closes the book on Joe. All right, so I'm next to close the book, and I'm going 19th century as well, Mr. Harry Stovey. Going to be my left fielder. Had a hunch I was going to end up taking him since I was anti-Bonds, and Manilso went off right away because I think he probably was going to be next for me. He just was the definition of 5-tool. He has black ink everywhere. The runs scored are obscene. The home run totals. He led the league 5 times here. He had stolen base crowns. And he did it in several leagues is what I think is impressive about him, because he had some American Association years, then the Players League, but then he came back to the NL, and what did he do? He led the league in triples, home runs, and slugging percentage at the age of 34. So you can't complain about the leagues that he played in because he dominated wherever he went. Local boy, New Bedford. Gotta love Harry Stovey. Just a very easy player to pick for me. He did it all, and he did it all with good longevity for the time, and led the league in everything, everywhere he went.
I was going to say, Adam, when you picked Ross Barnes, that probably my 2 favorite 19th century players are Ross Barnes and Harry Stovey.
You like black ink then?
What's that?
You like black ink then?
I guess so, yeah. I should have just taken Harry Stovey. Oh, no, I didn't have a chance to take Harry Stovey because I haven't picked since then. All right, well, I need a right fielder. I could take Sosa, but I'm gonna take Bobby Bonds. I thought Graham should take him, and and then he'd have a pair of father-son teammates. But
man, I should have done that too because I really wasn't that excited about Gary Sheffield. I just took him because I was like, well, probably best right fielder on the board. But yeah, Bobby Bonds would have been a much better pick.
Yeah, Bonds. What is there to say? I mean, he obviously, he had all the tools too. He just didn't put it together into the career that his son did. But he was amazing. He look at those offensive numbers. 129 career OPS plus, and he was a great right fielder. Had a cannon for an arm. I remember that one season with the Yankees, and then arguably his best, possibly his best offensive season of his career. As high as OPS plus of his career, 151.
Right.
I liken that. Joe's the only one that's gonna get this analogy, but I almost liken that to like when that one season Bernard King had, what was it, 1983, when he was just, just phenomenal. Like it felt like he couldn't be stopped. Although, with that, Bobby Bonds not quite Bernard King level, but it just felt like that to me. Except for then I also remember thinking, he struck out an awful lot too, which, he's Black Ink three times in that category. Although his numbers don't compare to nowadays, but
Right.
I mean, well, they compare, but but they're not. They wouldn't be considered high nowadays. I mean, he could do it all, and he had 58 WAR for a career. I mean, he was good. I mean, he's a borderline Hall of Famer who's not considered a borderline Hall of Famer for some reason. I mean,
Right.
that's what it feels like to me. I mean,
think
he's not
anybody could have.
But
sorry.
But this is he's my 10th round pick. I mean, you could certainly make a better argument for Sosa as a Hall of Famer. I just, wanted to go with someone that I wanted to talk about a little bit more here. So
I like it. Is it possible that anybody scored more runs than him in this 5-year stretch? Holy cow!
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
All right, and we're down to our last pick,
and
it's going to be a catcher.
And then just to remind you guys, we got the bonus round after this where we're going to select managers. So, we're not out of the woods with this. But I figure catcher, I'm a little surprised going through this. I mean, it's really – there's not a lot of catchers who aren't in the Hall of Fame who I wouldn't really be making too much of a case for. There's a lot of guys, though, who you can say a thing or two about. I mean, I was kind of trying to figure it out, who I wanted. And I mean, obviously there's like Jorge Posada and Jason Varitek and Gene Tennis, Elston Howard. I was kind of tempted to take like double duty Radcliffe, but I don't know if you can really make a case for him as a Hall of Fame catcher. He's just a guy who I'd like to see in at some point. But I think a guy who actually you can make a case for, and it's not a guy I get super excited about, but he probably should be a Hall of Famer, is Wally Shang. So he's going to be my catcher.
Nice.
He's on my list.
He's one of my guys. I think he's a no-brainer based on his era. He caught a lot of games for his time. Plus, he played in other positions as a utility guy. I think he's. I think they've done a good job with catchers in the Hall of Fame, but after Bennett obviously played in the 19th century, but I think the next guy, looking back longevity wise, Shang would be that guy, because the other guys are more recent that I would consider putting in the Hall of Fame. But I think that Bennett and Shang are both no-brainers in my book, for just simply because they were catchers and they were the best at what they did at their time.
There's something like a 50-year stretch where Wally Shang is the WAR leader for catchers. It's like he doesn't have a super high WAR total, but there's like a 50-year stretch, like before his career. I don't know if it's like 1900 to 1950-ish, that he's the WAR leader for catchers for like that half of a century. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the guys from his era who got in versus the ones who didn't. I mean, the shock is basically because of the 1919 World Series to some extent, I would argue. I think Bresnahan was kind of credited, rightly or wrongly, as a pioneer. And then, I mean, shoot, who even are like the other kind of dead ball era catchers like who are in? I'm trying to think if there are any others aside from Shock and Bresnahan.
There isn't. And then you get into the Dickey Hartnett years. Shang was the guy between Bresnahan and Dickey and Shock. He caught the most games. He had that record for a while.
Yeah.
But Shang was better than Shock in my book. So.
And that's our board. Any other players in particular that we want to mention that didn't get in there that we thought should have?
Oh, man. I'll give you 50 names.
I
The
know, I
one
always thought
guy
was
I
a
got,
big
one
Hall.
guy I like is Albert Bell. I think he had a short career, obviously, because of the injury, but he was a monster at the plate. And you can talk about his personality and his defense, so-so, but he was a monster at the plate. I mean, 50 homers and 50 doubles in one season. He's someone I like. That he was on one of the era battles the last few years. So I think he's an interesting future candidate.
It's interesting, Dale Murphy not making this. I mean, I know obviously he's not that great by sabermetrics, but he's the kind of guy who, if he ever got in the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't care one. I mean, I wouldn't bother me one bit if he got in. And then looking over this too, another guy who I kind of want to shine a light on, who, I mean, he would have been a perfectly fine pitcher pick, is Billy Pierce. Another one of my favorite underrated guys.
Right. Kevin Brown was not
surprised,
taken.
I'm surprised Kevin Brown didn't get taken. I honestly thought Schilling was going to go earlier, and I might take Kevin Brown at some point. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Kent I mentioned too. I was kind of surprised that he was still out there.
I mean, Nomar is another interesting one. You mentioned his name. When you want to talk feels like Hall of Famer, I mean, Nomar's in that Mattingly category. I mean, probably a little bit better than Mattingly.
My shortstop list is Glasscock, Dahlin, and Nomar.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
I think Sherry Maggie's another player.
Yeah. I
only
had
a handful of dead ball era guys, and he's one of them. Him and Shang.
I had him. In fact, I was contemplating at my last pick, saying I'm moving Manny to right and taking Sherry. I wanted to, I wanted to have. I mean, a guy. He was on my all left field team. If any of you remember the team that I created of all. I think he was my shortstop of all players whose primary position was left field, but played another position. Although someone pointed out later that I should have taken Tom Tresh as the shortstop, because he actually played enough at that position. But anyway, sorry for that tangent. But yeah, I liked Cherry.
I'm going to say one guy, and his name Matt Williams. I think for me, I thought he was going to be the next Mike Schmidt, and before his career fizzled out, but he still put up a pretty decent career. I know that there was
398 homers or something,
but he got hurt with the strikes.
Yeah.
And I think his numbers, he probably would have had 400 home runs if it wasn't for the strikes. And I think he's an interesting candidate because he's a third baseman. He's a guy that falls short of 2,000 hits. That missed 1,000 runs by 3. But I think he's an interesting candidate. Not a lot of people talk about him. His OPS plus is not as high as some of the other guys, but he's someone when I first saw him young, I thought this guy is going to be a Hall of Famer. And
yeah, growing up as a Giants fan, I mean, he was the kind of guy, if you'd asked me between 1993 and 95, I mean, I guess I wasn't really old enough to think about the Hall of Fame in those years. Like, I'm 36 now, but yeah, no, Williams, I mean, he's the kind of guy you probably early in his career, you would have thought, like, yeah, this guy looks like he's destined for, potentially, kind of the greatness.
I mean, third base, you could possibly have 4 more names that belong in the Hall of Fame. Buddy Bell, Sal Bando, Ron Say, Darrell Evans. All these guys have decent cases here.
Bob Elliott, I think, is overlooked.
Bob Elliott, yep. Matt
Lave
Williams,
Cross.
like you said. Lave Cross, yeah. All right, should we do Wheel of Names again to pick our managers? I feel like we should have a different order. Plus, this is just fun, right? All right.
The colors, look at those colors.
Oh, Graham is first again.
Oh, sweet.
I don't like going first.
Yeah. So a part of me is tempted to have Buck O'Neill be my player manager, but I think it's probably more useful to throw more names out there just so we have more names to bat around. So I'm going to say Lou Piniella as my manager.
Okay. Solid on the Hall of Fame ballots recently. Don't have too much else to say about him.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right. Who's next? Oh, it's going to be the same order, isn't it?
All right.
Woo! Damn.
Because I only had one thought. I'm going to go with Billy Martin.
There you go.
Not saying I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's the guy I wanted for this to manage this team.
He was so good.
He could handle Clemens and Schilling. Maybe not.
It is the same order. Wow, this looks bad.
It's a fix.
Which is good because I only have one name that I put on my manager list, and luckily I'll get to take him. I'm going to take Doc Adams. I don't know if he's quite qualifies, but I don't really feel very strongly about all that many non-Hall of Fame managers, and I couldn't take him at shortstop because I got Jack Glasscock with the #1 pick.
Well, I got two guys that I like, and I'm not going to take Danny Murtaugh, but I think he's an interesting guy because of the 2 championships, spaced out, high winning percentage. I think he's a very interesting case, and with Billy Southworth in, why not? But I think Jim Muttrey, in his role with the founding of the Giants and winning a couple, World Series and another pennant, as with the Giants, I think he's really the only manager from, you can even consider, before someone's career started in the 1930s, because everyone else is in. That's one. They've elected, as many managers as they can, but I think he's an important figure in the history of the game, and I think he would be a no-brainer, and especially as his role of elevating the Giants to what they became, because they were the dominant team before the Yankees took a hold of that. Maybe the Red Sox too, but
I like that Adam had your pick guessed like a solid 30 seconds before you said it. That was quite impressive.
Pretty good. He's pretty good at that. Actually,
it's a fun game.
Type in Murtaugh and then backing up.
No, it was all Mitri, but then I thought he was taking Murtaugh for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could just start taking MU. You would have been, a good stuff. You're off there. Well, that's one position they've done. The Hall has really not neglected, is putting managers in. So
right.
No one said Jim Leland.
No,
Leland would be good.
I think he's next after Piniella. He's probably the guy they're going to look at next.
Yeah, him or Davey Johnson. Davey Johnson's another.
Davey Johnson has the most games over 500 of a manager outside the Hall. So.
I won't be upset if he gets elected, but I don't really champion him. But I thought he was a little light on his career, but I'm also a little disappointed they didn't win more championship with the Mets, because they really had a great team, and they kind of blew it.
Yeah, you figured Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry stay clean and, maybe have a better manager, and 86 is just the start. They should have been winning World Series into the 90s.
Yeah. I remember feeling 88 they should have won. I mean, the Dodgers upset them, right? I felt like they were the team to beat that year too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely were. Yeah.
It's all about this guy.
Right.
That's why I didn't pick Frank Viola or, another one of the 88. I'm spitballing here.
Man, Frank Viola, I started looking at his stats lately compared to his peers. Holy cow, was he better than I remembered.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a story for another time. This is our draft board. We've hit like the 2-hour mark, I think, here.
Yeah, we're past.
So so I think we'll close this now. Any parting thoughts from anybody?
Thanks for hosting this, Adam. This was a great idea. Thanks for
Maybe
having
the
me.
hall should just take our list and just put them. Don't even have an election next year. Just put all those guys in, and we'll have a big ceremony next year.
I'm really
quarantine election.
I'm really struck by the depth of our picks too. Like at the start of this, I was worried that I'd really be having to dig for names, but it's like, we really had a pretty solid 40 selections there. Those are all pretty much guys you can make cases for.
Do you guys feel like you had to go beyond players that you actually support for the Hall of Fame? Because I support all of mine.
A little bit. I mean, I care about Wally Shang being in the Hall of Fame, but not that much. And same with like Ken Boyer, but then and like Gary Sheffield, but then other guys like are really close to my heart, like Lou Whitaker, Buck O'Neill, guys like that. Even John Donaldson. It's just guys who, I would go to the mat for.
Nice.
Yeah, I think everybody's at least borderline. In a big hall, which I know we all support a big hall.
Yeah.
Because it is one.
Well, that's right.
That out there.
Already. Right.
Yeah, all my guys belong in the hall, so I'm confident in that.
Right on, fellas. Glad we could do this.
Yeah.
Me too. All right. Why don't you all go around and give your Twitter handles so people know how to find you if they want to argue about your lame picks or not picking Steve Garvey or something.
All right.
Or Al Oliver.
Al Oliver actually was on my list. He and I are LinkedIn friends, and he sometimes will say like "Happy birthday" to me. He's a super nice guy, and might have missed out on 3,000 hits because of collusion. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter @GrahamDude, and I will talk about baseball history basically anytime, day or night. You find me on there, you tweet at me, we will talk about baseball history.
Yes.
No, I'm not as active on Twitter these days as Adam and Graham are, but I used to be. You can find me on Twitter @LeftFieldDan, and I'm happy to talk about baseball. Just as happy to talk about music or beer. That's pretty much it, those three.
You could find me at LHeads Gridiron. So that's LHEADS Gridiron. And that has something to do with another sport, but it's all baseball now.
Yeah, and I am Baseball Twit or Hall of Stats. Although, I have to say, my other sport, I've been posting a lot at Fußball Twit if you're into German soccer, but
Yeah,
that's for another time.
we can see the hat there. We're just,
I know my last podcast I was on a German soccer podcast just the other day. So,
wow.
all right, thank you all so much. This was a lot of fun, and maybe we can do this again about another topic soon.
Yeah, soccer.
There you go.
I learn my German soccer players now.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.